Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission really is to get right to the heart of this executive order, the one that's just completely changed the game for H-1B skilled worker visas,
Yeah.
especially the cost. We're digging into the actual order, the new fee details, the reactions we're seeing globally, and frankly, some pretty jaw-dropping comments from officials.
Yeah, and it's a vital discussion because this order, it hits immediately. It's got huge consequences for, talent flow worldwide, all the big US tech players, and that really affects America's competitive position. We're essentially watching an economic wall go up overnight.
Okay, let's start with the numbers, because the sheer scale of this change, that is the story, isn't it? Before this, companies applying for H-1Bs, they're paying administrative fees, what was it, around $1,500 total, maybe, something like that?
Exactly, somewhere in that ballpark. A manageable cost, really. But that number, it's basically ancient history now. The figure that's got everyone from CEOs to immigration lawyers just reeling. It's the new annual fee, $100,000.
Wow, okay, $100,000 per year.
For new applications. Yes, precisely. $100K annually slapped onto companies for every new H-1B application they want to file.
$100,000 a year.
Hmm.
That's not just filtering talent. It feels like it completely redefines the visa itself. So if that's the starting point, what does that cost right out of the gate due to, say, a small tech startup? How can they possibly compete?
Well, that's the thing. It creates an immediate, almost impossible barrier for many. And what's really crucial here is how long this lasts, the order. It's set to go live September 21st. And companies sponsoring these workers, they'd have to cough up that $100,000 fee every single year for up to 6 years, based on what we're seeing in the sources.
6 years. So potentially $600,000 just in fees. For one skilled worker,
That's
that's an incredible jump from basically administrative processing costs. And the justification for this huge financial lever, it was laid out pretty bluntly by Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Oh, absolutely. He didn't really mince words. He essentially framed it as a kind of corporate test. The quote is, it's quite stark. The company needs to decide, is the person valuable enough to have a $100,000 a year payment to the government, or they should head home and they should go hire an American? And then, almost as an aside, he added this claim that all of the big companies are on board with it.
Right. Valuable enough. That's putting an extreme price tag on value. But, okay, if the idea is to push out workers who aren't valuable enough, there's another perspective, right? From immigration attorney Tamina Watson. She argues it just pushes out smaller companies.
That's exactly the counterpoint highlighted in our sources. Watson basically called this order a nail in the coffin for a lot of smaller firms. Her immediate take was that almost everyone, except maybe the absolute giants, they're just going to be priced out. Think about small or medium businesses needing really specialized niche talent. How do they absorb that cost? It just puts enormous pressure on them, maybe proving only the big guys can stay on board.
Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely seems like it hits the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, the hardest. But okay, to really grasp the full impact, let's look at who actually uses the H-1B program now. For anyone listening who isn't super familiar, just remind us briefly what the H-1B is.
Sure. So the H-1B visa, it's the main way the U.S. brings in foreign workers for specialized jobs. Think tech, engineering, IT, that sort of thing. And it's competitive. There's a cap set back in 2004, actually, at 85,000 visas per year. So there's already a limit.
And it's always been kind of controversial, hasn't it? You hear critics saying it takes jobs from Americans, but then supporters, tech leaders like Elon Musk, argue it's essential for getting the world's best talent here and keeping the U.S. innovative.
Exactly. That ongoing debate is why this huge fee hike is such a bombshell. And if you look at the data, the official USCIS data, you see who really relies on this. Amazon. They were the biggest single recipient of approved H-1Bs last year, by quite a margin, actually.
Okay, Amazon first.
Yeah.
And then who else? The other big names, I assume.
Yep. You've got Tata Consultancy Services, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Google. The list goes on.
So this isn't some niche program for obscure roles. This is fundamental to how major U.S. tech and service companies get their core talent.
Absolutely. And, we were already seeing signs that things were changing even before this $100,000 fee dropped. Applications for the next fiscal year, they'd already dipped to 359,000. That's the lowest number in 4 years. So the market was maybe already cooling a bit, perhaps due to increased scrutiny or other factors, and now, boom, this massive financial shock hits.
Which brings us to the global picture, because this shockwave isn't felt equally everywhere, right? We really need to understand where most of these H-1B workers are actually coming from.
That's such a critical piece of context. The numbers are pretty staggering. India, workers from India accounted for 71% of all H-1B approvals last year. China was second, but way behind at about 11.7%. So when you have a policy that directly impacts potentially 71% of your pipeline, the reaction is going to be swift and strong.
71% from India. Wow. So it's no surprise then that India's main IT and services trade body, NASSCOM, they sounded the alarm immediately. They warned about considerable uncertainty for businesses, professionals, and students across the world. This isn't just a domestic policy issue anymore. It's clearly disrupting international business and talent flow.
And that disruption, you could see the panic almost instantly within U.S. companies, too, which, kind of contradicts Secretary Lutnick's point about everyone being on board. There were reports late one Friday, Amazon apparently sent out this really urgent advisory telling H-1B holders already inside the U.S. basically, stay put, don't leave.
Stay put. And what about employees who were outside the U.S. at the time?
That's where it gets really telling. The advice was essentially try to return before tomorrow's deadline if possible. And if you couldn't make it back by then, don't even try to re-enter the U.S. until they figured things out. Wait for further notice.
Don't attempt re-entry. That sounds drastic.
It's corporate emergency mode, right? That kind of advice signals huge internal confusion about how this order would actually be implemented at the border, like immediately, telling your key, highly skilled people, don't come back yet. That really speaks volumes about the level of crisis this order triggered.
And beyond the immediate panic, there's this longer-term economic worry. Jorge Lopez, he heads up immigration practice at Littler Mendelsohn. He warned this whole thing could just put the brakes on American competitiveness, especially in tech, but really across all industries.
Yeah, his thinking is that the six-figure annual fee just makes certain operations too expensive to run in the U.S. anymore. He actually suggested some companies might just move jobs, relocate entire teams or operations overseas rather than pay that kind of recurring fee just to keep specialized staff physically in the States.
Okay, let's try and connect some dots here. This whole H-1B debate, it's always been pretty contentious, right? Even within Trump's own circles over the years. There seems to have been a kind of push and pull on the policy intent.
Oh, definitely. You had figures like Steve Bannon, his former strategist, who is strongly against the visas, arguing they hurt American workers. But then, Trump himself has, at other times, praised the skills these workers bring. He even floated ideas like giving green cards automatically to foreign grads from U.S. universities to keep talent here. So yeah, there's always been this tension between, let's say, a more populist stance and what Silicon Valley says it needs.
But regardless of that internal back and forth, the trend towards making it harder was already there, wasn't it, before this fee hike? Our source data mentioned rejection rates hitting a record high during his first term.
That's right. The scrutiny really tightened. Rejection rates for H-1B applications, they shot up to 24% in 2018, a record high. And just to give that number some context, under the Obama administration, rejection rates were typically around 5% to 8%. Under Biden, they've been even lower, like 2% to 4%. So going from, say, 5% rejection to 24%, that's not just tweaking the rules. That was a major policy shift before we even got to this massive new fee. It went from most approved to nearly 1 in 4 rejected.
A tightening of scrutiny followed by a massive financial barrier. And then, just to make things even more complex, this didn't happen in a vacuum. There was another sort of parallel announcement recently, right? About a gold card.
Yes, exactly. This is where it gets interesting because you see these two almost opposing financial paths being created for immigration. The gold card program, it's designed as a fast-track visa for certain immigrants, but it comes with its own very steep price tag fees starting at 1 million pounds sterling, which for our listeners, that's roughly 1.2 million US dollars.
Okay, wait. So on one hand, we get this new policy making it incredibly expensive for companies to sponsor skilled workers, the $100,000 annual fee. And then almost simultaneously, we get a separate, super expensive fast track based purely on personal wealth, the $1.2 million entry fee.
That's the contrast. It really highlights what seems to be an emerging strategy. These two policies together, they fundamentally reshape who can come into the country and, crucially, under what kind of financial terms, corporate deep pockets or personal deep pockets.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture for you, the listener? The main thing to grasp is that this executive order, it's easily the biggest and definitely the most expensive shakeup the H-1B system has ever seen. It basically transforms the cost of bringing in skilled foreign talent from what was a relatively minor administrative expense to this huge six-figure annual burden on the company.
And when you put that action next to the new gold card policy, it raises a really important, maybe provocative question for you to think about. If the official goal is about getting top talent, the best and brightest into the U.S., does this new fee structure actually guarantee that? Does it ensure only the truly most valuable, using Nick's term, stay? Or does it maybe just create two completely separate tracks for entering the U.S., both based almost entirely on money? One track for people whose companies can afford a massive annual fee, and another for people who personally have millions to spend. It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? From skills and need, maybe more towards just financial capacity, something to consider.